Right. Well, welcome, folks, to this interview where I'm talking to Michael Carroll. Is it Michael Owen Carroll or Michael Carroll you prefer?
Oh, well, Michael Carroll. Yeah, Owen is just my middle name. So, but I use that online because all the other Michael Carrolls snapped up all the good domain names. Um, Thieving git. But yeah, so the problem having my middle name being Owen, it was spelled Owen in the English way,
Yeah.
is that people think it's O'Carroll, and it's not O'Carroll, it's O
Mm,
Carol, and
yeah.
that can get confusing. But only if I let it. So there, I generally don't usually go by the Owen, but for Gmail purposes and website addresses, yeah, that's where I am.
uh. Well, well, Owen is here to talk to me today about
Oh,
everything
not
2000
Michael
AD.
is here to talk to you about 2000 AD.
Michael, oh, what am I saying? Hang on, let me start again. Michael is here today to talk about. No, I'm leaving that in. Michael's all the talk about Owens, and I'm looking at Owen here. I'm looking at your website and everything. I'm like, wait, Owen is in my head. Anyway, Michael is here today to talk to Michael about 2000 AD, the galaxy's greatest comic. Zarjaz, Splundig Vertig is what I was going to say to start this off, and then I got sidetracked. But anyway, um, it celebrated its 45th birthday just last weekend. It was the weekend before. It was the weekend before.
Yeah.
And well, Michael is in a very interesting position in with 2000 AD because you read the first issue. You're a fan. You started off as a fan of 2000 AD, and now
Yeah,
you're a
yeah,
writer first.
that's right. Yeah, I started off. Issue one came out. We knew it was on the way when we were kids because it was advertised in things like Action and Battle and a few of the other
Mm-hmm.
IPC. And I was a huge science fiction fan already. Because people have to remember that this was early 1977 before even Star Wars came out,
Yep.
and we didn't even know what Star Wars was. Well, I certainly didn't at that stage. I was 10, nearly 11, basically. My birthday is the end of March, and the comic came out at the end of April. Or sorry, the end of February.
Yep.
So I was nearly 11. So I was the exact right age for 2000 AD, I reckon. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we loved it from the get go, and I've been
Yeah.
reading it ever since. It's been hugely influential on my life.
And now writing for us.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My first 2000 ADs first story accepted was in, I think it was in 2007 or so. I mean, I'd written lots of other things by that stage. I'd written books and comics and or books and other small press comics and things. But I met a hero of mine, 2000 AD artist called John Higgins. I
Mm-hmm.
met him at a convention in Dublin, and he said to me, "Oh, well, you like the comic, you write science fiction. You should write for the comic." It's too hard to write for comics. I said, "Well, I was much more manly than that,"
Yeah.
and he went, we'll give it a shot. So I can't remember when that was. I think it was around about 2001 or so, and John and I became strict friends, and we still are. So very good friends. We still work together. He's definitely one of my favorite people on the planet, and he's just said, I suppose the old thing with talking about it, writing is not the same as actually writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I learned the same lesson years ago from an Irish novelist, Michael Scott, who I said, I've always wanted to write a book, and he went, well, why don't you?
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can't climb a mountain by talking about mountain climbing. You've got to get out there and do it. And with writing, you've got to do it. So I started writing stuff for 2000 just short stories, sending them in, collecting a good pile of rejections, but learning as I went.
Mm-hmm.
And the trick is, you don't quit. You get a rejection, you go, oh, that's not fair. And then you keep going. Because, if you never quit, then you can't lose. So it's
Exactly.
I know it's very, very
But
pithy statement.
I think with 2000 AD, it's a very, as you say, you're a writer for science fiction, and there's not a set type of story. Like it's science fiction. Sometimes there's a bit of fantasy in there as well too, but it's science fiction. So if you've got a science fiction story, it doesn't need to be like there's not like, we'll say if you're writing for DC or Marvel, there's a specific type of story they're going to look for. Whereas 2000 AD, it's going to be, it's interesting. It seems that what they were. We haven't seen that before. Every time I seem to pick up a 2000 AD issue, it's like, well, I've never seen that before. Where did they come up with that idea? Where's that coming from? Like in the early days when you started reading 2000 AD, you had things like Flesh, which is, folks, if you don't know it, by the way, I'll give you the introduction to 2000 AD as well, home, folks. switch that around a little bit because I got a bit confused. But an introduction to WD. Basically, it's an anthology series, an anthology comic book where it's 30 pages and every story gets about 4 or 5 pages. And it's but weirdly, you think like, oh, that's not enough time. But the writing is so tight in it all the time. And that's, I suppose, why you got so many rejections, because it's like they're very strict in there. But we'll say, so like they had, when it started off, it was stuff like Flesh, which is literally about a Tyrannosaurus Rex in prehistoric times. And these cowboys go back in time to wrangle dinosaurs. And the series is basically them getting eaten by this dinosaur flesh. And sometimes I'm not proud of this. When I was young, I was like, yeah, go on, Flesh. Go on, get him. They're trying to hurt you. Go on, get him. And you do get, and there's Seiko, the polar bear, which is kind of similar. And the list is endless. And of course, there is, of course, the most famous character out of the Judge Dredd, which you have, of course, which you've written for as well. And what?
Oh yes, yeah, yes, I have many times. Yeah.
Yes. And there's Johnny Alpha, Durham Raid. I mean, the list is, I'd be here for days to go over it. But just as they say, the galaxy's greatest comic. When they started saying, when they said that originally, I don't know if they really knew it was going to be it, but it has become that.
It's a weird thing, because when we were little kids and we were reading the comic, and early teenagers, having a great time with it, and there was all this stuff about the alien editor,
yes,
and how he'd come to produce the Galaxy's greatest comic. We always going, yeah, we're going along with the joke. It's all good fun.
Yeah.
But here we are, 45 years later, thinking, bloody hell, my career depends on this comic. I mean, to a degree. They've done amazing work. I mean, there's been an awful lot of terrible stuff in 2008.
It's like any science fiction thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Star Trek, anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. There's an awful lot of draws, but the good stuff. I think part of the problem with 2008, back when it got and it's less good, was around about the 90s, when the original crew kind of disappeared. They went off to make money in the States. The publishers didn't know what to do with the comic, and it was kind of floundering a bit, and the editors were working hard to make it as good as they could.
They got rid of Tharg.
Quite catching, and it's like trying to start your engine on a cold morning. Sometimes it just won't go. But they didn't quit. They could have just said, "Oh, it's not selling as well. The stories aren't as strong as they used to be. We're not quite there. Let's pull the plug." And what they did do was they just kept going. And then Rebellion, it's a computer games company based in the UK. They went, "We have money. We could buy 2000 AD. And I don't mean just go to the shops and buy a copy. We could buy the entire thing." And so they did. And everything just took off from there. It went from strength to strength. But I think one of the great advantages that it had was that 2000 AD didn't stay as a comic for kids. It grew up. And now it's very much an adult comic. I mean, I wouldn't be too happy about my grandkids reading it, because I don't have any grandkids. And that's one of the main reasons there. As you know, we don't have children, but we do have grandkids, because there was an accident with a time machine. But so I wouldn't recommend it to anybody under the age of 14 or 15, maybe.
Yeah. Oh well, there is the Regened one now. We should say there's Regened. They are.
Every 3 or 4 months they have a special issue, which is stories aimed at all ages readers, and that's great fun to do. Yeah.
But as you say, it. I mean, as we say, like it was. I mean, it was never. I mean, you look at it, you kind of go, "Gee, is this for kids? Like a dinosaur is eating these people." Like, I mean, you can't see the blood, but those people are getting.
We were tougher back in the 70s. Now, Mike, you wouldn't know this.
I mean, like kids nowadays would still love that stuff. Like, nothing has changed, but it's just
now
that
we have helicopter parenting.
Gosh, I don't know.
Yeah. It's the parents will go, "Oh, this isn't right. This dinosaur has bitten this man in half. It's horrible." And the kids will be going, "Yes, brilliant."
Yeah, of course. But what I mean is, like,
kids, we didn't. Very few of us turned out to be serial killers, as far as I remember. I mean, out of our class in school, there was 30 or so. I think only about 8 were actually murderers in the end. So that's not bad. But the thing is, there was a fear these days, and it's been growing for a while, that if you give the kids violent media, they will become violent, because
Oh
the
yeah,
idea is that violence breeds violence. But
yeah,
children are way smarter than people realize, and
of course.
they know the difference between pretend violence and
Yeah,
actual violence. Most of them do. The ones
yeah.
who don't know are going to be trouble anyway.
Oh yeah. But what I
So
meant
yeah,
was you have like things that are slightly violent, but it was what when people say it grew up, what I mean is like it mature. Like there is a complexity to some of these stories. Like Judge Dredd isn't just he's the law man. He just shoots it. Was like, well, hang on a second. What's actually going on in Mega City 1? Why is there like a guy who's the judge, jury, executioner? What are the politics of this city? What
exactly.
is Judge Dredd a good guy? Is he not a good guy? In some
But
situations, he is. In some
that
situations,
is
he's
the
evil.
actual key, the most important thing about Judge Dredd that a lot of
Yeah.
people don't twig, is that he's not the hero.
No.
Um, he's the protagonist of most of the stories, but he's
Yeah.
not necessarily a good guy. And
No.
I've written books and comics about Dredd. So books can come into a different kind of level, different kind of depth, and he sees himself as a cop. He's doing his job,
Yeah.
but he doesn't ever sit back and go, am I a good guy or a bad guy? He just
No.
does his job. But
Yeah.
from the outside, he's a fascist.
Oh
The
yeah.
judges
Yeah.
are a fascist regime.
Yeah.
They are absolutely totalitarian. And
Yeah.
um, when you're a little kid and you're reading the stories, you're going, "This is great," because it's a future
Yeah.
city with future crimes. Therefore, you need future cops. But as the stories matured to that level, we began to realize, oh, hang on a minute, these guys are really nasty. I mean,
Yeah.
arresting people for littering or worse,
Yeah.
and worse than arresting them. They yeah, it's pretty horrible. Now, I've done
Yeah.
a series of books. Actually, I have them here. By an amazing coincidence, a series
Reason
of
now, folks, to watch this
yeah,
on the YouTube channel as well.
advertising. This series of books called Judges,
Yeah.
that I'm sort of shepherding. I've written some of the books in it, and
Mhm.
I've sort of shepherding the other writers and all that.
And
But
these are
it's about
prose
promotion.
novels. It's opposed to graphic novels, we should say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like to think of them as text only graphic novels.
Yes. There you go.
The pictures appear in your head.
Yeah.
They like via telepathy. I think of things and then later on someone reads them and they get the same thing. It's kind of magic. But what we're doing is we show how Judge Dredd's world could come about from our world.
Mhm.
Part of the problem is though, when 2008 started, we were looking at 122 years between the date we were reading the comic and when Judge Dredd stories were set in the year
Mm.
2099.
Yeah.
And now we're 45 years on at this end, and we're telling, we're sort of catching up way too quickly with what's happening there. But yeah, so that's between that and Dreadnoughts, which is a comic book version of the early days of the Judges that are doing.
Mm.
We're showing that it's pretty horrible stuff. I mean, the
Yeah.
Judges are a drastic solution to a drastic situation, but they're not necessarily the right solution.
I tell you what, with 2008, I remember I read it as a teenager, and it really did get me thinking about like what is going. Like things were not always black and white, and well, not like, but there's like it made you think about, well, who is this person? The characters weren't heroic and superheroes. They were like Judge Dredd is
Yeah.
kind of a piece of crap. But then there's something like Judge Death will come in and go, well, hang on now, he is being a good guy here. So what is going on? But there was no, it wasn't our Nemesis, of course, is another great example. Or you deal with things like in a broad way, racism with strontium dogs and how it's all, I mean, we see that all the time in politics with people, trying to other each other and stuff like that. And there's a whole story there, folks. If you haven't read it. It's great. Well, I suppose, what was your own favorite one as a kid? What was your favorite stories as
well, at the very beginning,
question?
I absolutely loved the 2000 version of Dan Dare, which was Dan Dare was a character from 1950s British
The
comic called
Eagle and
Eagle.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what they did was they kind of reinvented him in 2000 AD, and it was totally different. They had a different, almost like a different character with the same name. But I thoroughly love that. But as the stories went on, Judge Dredd got better and better and better, and I absolutely adored that. But then, and this is the key thing now, 2000 did an adaptation of a book called The Stainless Steel Raft, written by Harry Harrison, science fiction novel. And I loved the comic book adaptation. I just thought it was so strong and very, really good fun. It's
Mm.
basically set 30,000 years in the future. Everybody is kind of sanitized. It's all everything's the criminal element has been bred out of the people. There's a human race all over the different planets all over the galaxy. Except every now and again an anomaly appears, and that the lead character is a crook, bank robber, a thief who is just he has a moral center, but it's not quite as well fixed as other people's might be.
Yeah.
And it's really good fun. The Stainless Steel Rat. I love that story so much. I went out and bought a book it was based on. Love that. Bought all the other books in the series.
Yeah.
So I was 15, 16. I was reading all these science fiction books. I'd never heard of Harry Harrison before, but I kept reading all of his books to the point now where there's only two people I know maybe who have more Harry Harrison books than I do. One of them was Harry, and he sadly departed 10 years ago. And I love this stuff so much. I thought I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a writer, and that's why I became a writer eventually. I was so inspired by the way Harry's prose was so effortless and so much fun, and he really put the fun into science fiction. The emphasis was always more on the fiction than the science. Some science fiction books are like a technical manual for a spaceship. There's no fun in them. There's no life. The characters exist to throw out an idea, whether it's science fiction or science idea or a philosophical idea or whatever, but they're not having any fun. In the Stainless Steel Rat and Death World and other books by Harry Harrison, the science is great, the action is amazing, the characters are hilarious usually, so I absolutely love that. I thought this is my jam, to use a phrase that I like to imagine that young people use, which they probably don't. And between that and 2000 AD, I said, this is what I want to do. And like that, 20 years or so passed, and then I finally started doing something about it, because I had to have a job and a career and all that. But, it made a real impact. So the Stainless Steel Rat was my number one thing for a very long time. They only ever did 3 series of that, but it was brilliant.
But that's the thing, though, whereas like it's so diverse and you'll get so many ideas, so many writers that come on. There's like the Future Shocks, where a lot of people, I'm sure you've written a lot of them. Most writers, if you're writing for 2000 AD, when you start off, you write a future shock, and it's basically a science fiction story with a twist. Or there's time twisters and stuff like that as well. Don't know if that's kind of the same, but those are basically like quick short stories, basically, kind of like, I suppose, Twilight Zone, where basically you got like things like, oh, I'm the man with the pig nose. Oh, it was me all along. I was actually beautiful in this universe, or something. I don't know. But they are good. Not like what I did.
What the Twilight Zone was.
Yeah. But I'm rebooting the Twilight Zone, where at the end of every episode it's like, oh, I had a pig nose and I'm actually beautiful here. That's it. It doesn't matter what it is. But yeah, so it was like just a very kind of very, very diverse in the writing styles and the stories and things like that. But I was going to ask you, actually, what was your first thing you got published in 2018?
Yeah, my first one was a Future Shock, because that's our sort of the way in. And the idea is that if you can write a good Future Shock, which is 4 pages now, it has to be a completely standalone story. It was 5 pages back when I was doing it. It has to be a completely standalone story, so it can't be Judge Dredd or it can't be any of the other characters. So you've got to have a beginning, a middle, and end, and some kind of twist. And the story has to be good. So if you can do that, then they know you might be ready to do something else. But yeah, my first one was, there's a long story to this, but it's worth it at the end. I used to be the editor, perennial editor on a science fiction short story competition, the James White Awards. James White was a science writer who lived up north, and brilliant guy. And I used to be one of the judges on this competition that was on in his honor every year. And the stories would come in and we go, God, not this again. Oh, robots who turn on their masters. Oh, that's never been done. This one's a nice story about JFK, who's really a cyborg mutant alien robot. Or this one's about Marilyn Monroe. This is about Adam and Eve. This is about Hitler. And everybody was treading the same ground. So just for a laugh, I put together a list of all of the tropes. We didn't even know the word trope in those days. So we don't want stories about robots who are massive. We don't want stories about dinosaurs being cloned back to life. It's all been done. And vampires are. what happened was I said to myself, what if you wrote one story that had all of these elements in the one thing, just for fun?
Yeah.
And in the end, I didn't do that, but I did have a story in which it said in the end of the Second World War, Adolf Hitler has his scientists build a time machine so that he can go back and tell his earlier self to not invade the Russian front at the same time. So you don't fight a war on two fronts. But what happens? Something goes wrong, and he ends up getting himself, Adolf, and his brand new bride, because this is the day after he got married, gets sent way back in time, 100,000 years, and they realize that they're the first humans, Adolf and Eva. I've killed him. I killed him, Michael Wicker. No, it gets better, because it's called Back to the Führer. Yes.
Did they die? Did they get eaten by a dinosaur? That's how I would have ended this.
But it was so it's a corny idea, but I think I did it quite well. But what happened with that one, I think this is the reason. This is the reason that this worked, is that I sent the story to the editor. I'd sent him loads and they'd been rejected. Yep. And I sent the story and he went, yeah, basic idea is okay. I don't like this, I don't like that, so on and so forth. And I went, oh, what if I rewrite it and do it the way you suggest and tweak it your way, or come up with things that fix the problems? And he went, yeah, have a go. And I'd never done that before. Prior to that, I'd always gone, I'll try again with something else. So I polished the story, rethought it, basically, reworked it, and sent it back. And he said, I like that. Send me an invoice. And I'm going, hey, how do I do an invoice? What happened was then I'd written, that was 2007. I think the next one didn't come out until the middle of 2009, because I'm writing novels as well. And then the editor, Matt Smith, he said to me, would you like to pitch some ideas for Tales of the Black Museum in the Judge Dredd magazine?
Yeah.
Judge Dredd magazine is basically a companion comic, a multi-companion comic to 2008. And
the Black Museum, we should say, you're going to say, sorry, very sorry.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah, they're stories that they're like the Future Shocks, they're standalone tales, but in this case, they are set in Judge Dredd's world. So you can use elements from Dredd's world. So I wrote a few of those. And then he said to me one day, do you want to pitch ideas for Dredd? And I went, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. And I was going to go, yeah, well, then go on. So I was very lucky. But then, to be honest, also at that stage, I'd published 3 or 4 million words worth of short stories and novels and other things. So I knew how to write. But I just had to learn how to write comics. So it's quite a different discipline, Mm-hmm. So it's actually very different, because in comics, the action doesn't take place on the panel. It takes place between the panels. The reader fills those bits in for themselves. So, it's quite tricky. But once you get the hang of it, it's quite hard to stop doing it then.
Mm-hmm. Well, was it daunting, though, to take on Judge Dredd? I mean, I suppose kind of not really, because you've been reading it since the go. So maybe it was like, was it easy? Was it tough?
It was tough because I'd read an interview with Garth Ennis. And Garth, like me, it's relatively from a very early age, and he gone on to do amazing things. But I read an interview with him years later where he said the writing Dredd was hard because he was a fan, and an awful lot of it that he'd written was kind of fan fiction, if you like, even though it was officially published. He felt that he didn't have his own take on it. So I deliberately had to scale back my enthusiasm. I initially wanted to go, we can put this in, we can do all these bits I've loved.
References and stuff like.
So I did a bit of that, but for the most part, I've kept a very tight lid on what I've done. So I mean, I've done a lot of Dredd at this stage. The past few years have slowed down because I'm working on other things. But I did a lot of fan service things that were probably I shouldn't have done, but at the same time, I think I got a balance right quite early on. I'm saying that quite tentatively because I don't really go back and reread them unless I'm looking for references specifically to something I'm currently writing. I don't like to reread my older stuff too much because all you can see when you look at your old stuff is the things you didn't do.
Yeah.
What if I'd done this instead? But I will occasionally have to go back and look at them because if I'm following up on an idea, I have to go, how did I say that? What's this character's name or whatever? And I look at it and go, oh no. But then sometimes you look back at your old stuff and you go, that's really good. And it's always a surprise. And then you start thinking, how did I actually write that? Was that me?
When did you come up with what was the? I'm gonna pronounce it wrong because I've only read it. It's Pros, Proteus Vex,
Proteus Vex.
which is
Yes.
completely different to Judge
Yeah,
Dredd. The world is
it
not
is. Yeah.
as rigid. It's
Yeah.
we can't really say too much because we're going to spoil things. But
You know what? I know how to talk about it without spoiling it because
okay,
I
of
really
course.
also I'm just about to start writing book 4, but as in just about to, as in I would be doing it now, except I'm talking to you.
Oh
But
no,
you've ruined it.
no.
Yeah, the protein specs. The idea behind it was that I went to chat to the editor of 2000 AD, and I'd written a lot of stuff. I'd never gotten my own series. I was always writing Dread, which is weird because I was in I think quite a unique situation where previously I'd approached the editor many times and said, "Oh, I want to do this," and nothing had ever worked. Whereas other writers on different series have going, "Oh, I want to do Dread. I want to do Dread," and I'm going, "I want to get off Dread." um, and I went to him and said, oh, "I really want to do something more space opera, that kind of thing." And
Hmm.
something that's not as rigid because Dread has very strict rules on what we can and
Yeah,
can't do.
yeah, of
Um,
course.
so I say, I mean, even though it is a very, very big sandbox, it is still a sandbox with walls.
Yeah.
Um, and so I said, I want to do something that's totally my own creation,
Hmm.
or me and the artists, that kind of thing. And he said to me, Henry Flint is coming free soon. I'd worked with Henry a couple of times on things, and he's brilliant,
The
brilliant, brilliant artist.
artwork and your
Yeah.
writing just it's a oh I looked at that first. I was like, I'm reading the whole thing of this. Is anyway, come on, carry
He
on. Sorry.
Yeah, he is
Gorgeous.
amazing. He's extremely flexible artist as well. He can switch his
Yeah.
style around and incredibly imaginative. So basically, yeah. So Matt said, yeah, Henry's coming free. Maybe something for him. Now, one of the things he'd written that he drew that I loved was Shakara, which was about basically an alien kind of space opera type thing. And I wanted to do something that had a slight flavor of that, but was a bit less fantastical because his was it was way over the top. I wanted to do something close. What happened was Henry basically went away. I mean, I wrote the script um, after much to and fro. Wrote the script, sent it in. Henry went away and completely ignored all my suggestions and come up with his own idea of what it should look like. Um, and he went down routes I wouldn't have gone. I would not have done certain things.
Mm.
Now, no, that's not criticizing them, but uh, normally what you'd expect is kind of a to and fro. The artist would say, "Well, here's a sketch of the character I'm thinking of. Does that suit what you want?" But by the time I saw any of the artwork, he was already on episode 7 or 8 or something like that, and it was too late for me to do
Yeah.
anything. So I just had to run with it, and that meant when I was doing book 2, I had to change certain things because the art that he'd done did not match what I got planned. I can't
Okay.
say what that was. But
Yep.
yeah, the basic idea though behind Proteus Vex is that it's set in the far, 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 far future or another galaxy or somewhere. It's nothing to do with
Both,
humans. There's
isn't
no
it? I thought.
humans.
I thought it was like the far future and a different galaxy or universe.
Well, it's yeah, that's what it says in the tagline.
Oh,
Another galaxy, the distant future, or whatever. But it's yeah, it's there's no humans in it.
okay.
So
Yep.
Proteus Vex is a former soldier who who was on the side of the winning side of a massive war.
Mm.
And the war basically ran for 1,400 years. It's a big intergalactic thing. And so 4 decades later, Vex is and now he's now an agent for the winning side, the Imperium Ascendant.
Right.
And he's given a task to track down one of his bosses, who's about like 4 or 5 levels above him, who has somehow gone missing. And that's the first story he starts off, and it leads Vex to a situation where he kind of sees the error of his ways in a way. He realizes, oh, hang on a minute, we might have been the winners. That doesn't mean we were right. Not saying he was wrong either, but he discovers an awful lot of horrible things
Mm.
that his side done, including things that he did, and in the war, and he effectively becomes a fugitive. And I won't go on beyond that. But
Yep.
what happened was when the book 2 was being drawn or being developed,
Yep.
Henry wasn't available for it. So I think it was either him or Matt suggested another artist, Jake Lynch. Now, I'd worked with Jake once or twice on a few things, and I went, "Oh, Jake could be interesting." And then Jake started doing the work, and my jaw just hit the floor because he built on everything Henry had done and took it in a different direction. Not hugely different, but different enough. So Jim Boswell was brought in to do the coloring, and Jake and Jim and me have worked pretty closely, I think, now on
beautiful
books 2 and 3. And book
it's gorgeous,
4. Yeah, I was just chatting to them as I got to go ahead 3 days ago for book 4 of Proteus Vex, and I've told the guys it's roughly what's going to happen, so they're a bit prepared, and start writing the scripts and send them in and see where we go from there. But it's it's basically the idea behind it is that they are all aliens, so anything goes in a sense.
Exactly, yeah. So, is it kind of? Is that when you have a situation like that where it's in a different galaxy, we'll say, or wherever, and a different planet, we'll say, and there's no humans at all, no laws of what we know of our world will face to an extent. Is that freeing, or is it almost kind of daunting? You're like, I could do anything. There are no parameters. Whereas in Judge Dredd, you're like, I can go I can't really go anywhere, but I can. I know the rules of the world, but where is this? Yeah.
That's it's funny you should say that, Michael, because when I was a programmer back in the days, when I was a computer programmer, there was a saying going around that it's easier to do. Sometimes it's easier to work in a computer language where there's very strict rules than in one where there's no rules. Like C or C++ have got a lot of freedom. So sometimes you sit there going, well, I've got 10 different ways I can do what I want to do with this. Which I would like, but if you're working in a language like Lisp or something like that, you can only go one way. So you do it that way. And sometimes you get that with writing, is that if you're looking at the blank page, like with Proteus Vex in the very beginning, there were no rules. So it was up to me to make the rules and then stick by them. I know I have done that. I haven't broken anything. I've made sure that the science, even though it's imaginary science, is consistent to itself.
You need that. You do that.
Yeah, I papered over it. But then there's with Dredd, there are things you cannot ever do, and that, if you like it, obstacles give you something to climb on. So you can get to new heights by climbing over these obstacles. But if you've got a totally flat field, you've got to build your own obstacles. You've got to build your own tower to get higher. So so it's interesting. It's very freeing, but at the same time quite terrifying. Because there's no one but me and the artists deciding where this story goes. Primarily me, because I say to the artist, here's the script, and the editor goes, yep, and there's no feedback. There's no don't do this, because it's my show, and then I say to the artist, this is what I want, and they will come up with stuff, and I go, oh yeah, that's a point. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I have worked like this before as a novelist. Where I'm just kind of totally carte blanche. But the problem with that is, or the advantage with that, is that I am the only one there. But with Proteus Vex or anything for a comic, I'm not drawing it. My job is to tell a story to the artist. Their job is to tell a story to the reader. So their job is much more important. If I screw up, they can fix my mistakes. If they screw up, the reader sees it. So what we have is, the way I always see it is that in a comic, someone opening it for the first thing they notice is the color. And so the colorist becomes the key person there. Then the art, they notice the artwork. And then they read the story, but they only read the story through the lettering. So the letterer is also important. Well, actually, that's incredibly important. And letterer on Proteus Vex is Simon Boswell. He's genius. But so what we have is my bit, even though it kicks everything off, is in many ways less important than everybody else's. They can paper over my cracks, as it were. So that isn't necessarily true, but it's an attitude I like to have. I would tell the artists, this is what I want to see, and if they have a better way of doing it, they're usually going to be right. So I let them.
I'm glad you said that, actually, because I think a lot of time in comics, it's writer is king or artist is king, depending which publisher you're going with or whoever's writing an article with it. But it's really collaborative. It's like artist and writer, letterer, colorist, Everyone working together. Is it flatters? I was hearing someone said that the other day. And I was like,
Yeah,
what's
the
that?
Flappers, yeah. That's a job that didn't
Everyone.
exist years ago. Yeah.
But there we go. They're all people working together. And if one of them isn't pulling their weight, or one of them is just like, you know, I don't know, who cares? It's not
Yeah.
going to work together. Whereas if the letter is off, it's like, well, it's fine. I can understand the story, you know. But if the letter was just that bit perfect, like, oh, that is good now. I mean, it
Yeah.
really brings it all together and really
Yeah.
sells it
The,
completely, you know.
there's a great I think it was Brian Talbot who said a great thing about one thing about lettering is that the lettering, the placement of the speech balloons in the letter for lettering,
Yeah.
leads the reader's eye through the page in a
Yeah.
particular pattern.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if that is done wrong, so incorrectly, you can take the reader in the wrong kind of direction, and
Yeah.
that can throw them off. And anything you do, and I learned this as a novelist as well, anything you do that reminds the reader after reading is usually a bad thing. So don't try and you don't talk to the reader unless the story is that type of story.
Yeah.
But you don't do anything out of the blue. You don't put in speed bumps or anything that will slow them down.
Yeah.
There's a thing called suspension of disbelief, where the reader basically accepts the virtual reality, as it were, of the book or the comic or whatever it is they're reading, and they believe it and they just run with it, even though they're looking at marks on a page.
Yeah.
They're looking at ink.
Yeah.
But there's adventures happening inside their head, or romances, or horror, or whatever. But anything you do, then that includes typos or anything like that trips them up and makes them go, oh, and they realize where they are. That's a bad thing.
Yes, he says. I have often used to think that when I was reading a comic and you get almost like tunnel vision, you don't see anything around you, you're just in the comic, you're just going in and you're reading it, and you're
not aware of turning the pages, you're not aware of looking at it.
No, at all. You're thinking, I remember like you'd be sitting in the back of a car reading a comic. You're not in the back of the car reading a comic. You're inside Mega City 1. You're, well, not to an extent, but and it's just brilliant. It's just it's a great medium. It's fantastic. I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's very collaborative at the same time, as you say. And I think people kind of forget that sometimes. I mean, there are people that do write and draw the whole thing all themselves, but I think it works well. Either way, it kind of works well, to be honest. It's fantastic medium. It's brilliant, beautiful like that.
There's a mistake that people now often make, is that assuming that comics are for kids because kids read comics. But I don't understand why they don't go, well, therefore television is for kids because kids watch television. The comic is just a medium to which a story can be told, and there's no other medium that works quite like it, because the reader, when you're reading a book or a comic, you set your own pace. So it's fast or slow or whatever. But a comic has a particular thing where they put you in a third person perspective, because you can always see the main characters on the page. So you're looking over their shoulder or looking straight at them. You're not inside their heads. Whereas in a book, you can be very easily inside a character's head. And as I say, the action happens between the panels or as the page is turning. What you have is a series of individual stills, and the reader they fill in the gaps themselves. And if you look at something like V for Vendetta by Alan Moore and David Lloyd, the comic is an absolute masterpiece. Now, the film version, I think, is really, really good. A lot of people don't like it. I think it's brilliant.
I like it. I think it's fine.
Yeah. It was made in a different time for a different time. They had to adapt it an awful lot. What they got right, they worked brilliantly. The bits I didn't get right are maybe there. But the comic itself, you look at that, and that could not have been done any other way. There's no way you could tell that story as a prose novel or as a movie or a TV show or a radio play. It only works as a comic, because Moore and David Lloyd are two of the very best in the business. And that's true for so many other things. Now, there are cases where the story can be so flexible that it can be, told in different mediums. But comics do have a certain savor and a certain tinge, and if you like, a certain heft that nothing else has. I mean, a really good comic can change your life.
It's just the weirdest medium and the most amazing. It's like you can tell stories in weird ways. You could have, it's bizarre. It's an amazing one. But I suppose I was going to say to you is Well, I was actually going to say, well, that was the thing I was going to ask you, actually. No, and that's come back in my head. Editorial. So you were saying earlier on, I should take notes, shouldn't I, really, during the interview? But,
Yes,
well, I do, because my short-term memory is not always great. But, well, I was going to say about editorial, because you were saying earlier on that it's you telling the story. So do you get any kind of like a lot of notes or anything from like Matt Smith, who's the editor of
the way it'll usually work. In fact, I'm about to start working on a one-off Dredd tale for, I think, I can't say. But the way it works is that Matt will say, well, we need a 10-page Dredd story that's in this particular vein. Actually, in this case, there's a particular theme. And so he said, story in this vein, and I say, okay, well, how about this? And give him like maybe a short paragraph, 4 lines, saying, roughly this happens. And then he will get back to me and go, yeah, no, whatever. Sometimes he goes, yep, that's fine. And then I write the script and I send it to him. And usually I get, yep, that's right. And that's all I get. Now and again, maybe one time in 10, if even, I get it back and go, no, this bit doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been at this game a long time now. I know, I kind of know what I'm doing to a degree. I know.
They trust you. But I mean, they trust you to know they know what you're doing. You're not going to be like, it's not going to be like hand holding or like saying, oh, what about this? And suggesting things. Yeah.
But last year now, what happened was for the summer special, 2000 summer special last year, and Matt covered a very basic sort of theme for the 2000 summer special. And all of the stories will be connected. So he said, this is roughly what I was thinking of, and said to me, I want you and Maura McHugh. Now, Maura is another Irish comic book writer and novelist and short story writer, and also one of my favorite living Irish writers, I have to say, and a good friend. So Maura and I we collaborated as story editors effectively on this. So we wrote the overall arc. I wrote the initial Judge Dredd story. She wrote Judge Anderson's story. We collaborated on the end tale, which brings everything together. But we knew that the stories in the middle would be written by different writers. So we gave them kind of very vague outline and said, these are our scripts. Your story has to kind of fill this gap to this degree between here and here. Don't go too far outside it, but do what you will. And so the other 3 writers, they went away and they came back with the scripts, and we were reading the scripts going, wow, this is really good. And in one case we went, this is brilliant, but it's not right. So we had to go back to the writer and go, actually it was all of them, but one in particular, he was really, really good, but it was like trying to herd a cat. A genius cat, but a cat nevertheless. We're going, go there. He'd go, yes, and he'd go that way. And we go, yeah, I mean, what you've done is amazing, but it's wrong. For what we wanted there. But so we had a taste of what Matt has to go through with some of the creators, and it was immensely frustrating and immensely rewarding at the same time. So I think what we have is a situation now where we learned a huge amount of that from that, and we were going, brilliant, wow, yeah, we are proper editors. Yeah, I'm not doing that again. It's too hard. That's not true. I would do it again, but I would be meaner than I was, and I wouldn't be as friendly and go, I really like what you've done, but could you perhaps do this? I'd be going, no, it's wrong, because I'm very, very evil. But so what happens is that normally with my stuff, I just send it in and Matt goes, yep, that's fine. Or sometimes I have to pressure him and go, did you even get that? And he goes, oh yeah, that's right. So, because he's doing 32 pages of 2000 AD every week, 64 pages of the magazine every month, and various graphic novels and specials. I can't get my head around how much he
don't know how it happens. Like but the other thing is, how hard is that to write though? I mean, let's say like you're writing a Judge Dredd story, and you've got like, okay, it's going to be however many pages, how many chapters we'll say, episodes, I suppose it'd be, but each little section is like 4 pages long, and you've got to tell a succinct story, or 6, whatever. And I didn't even say whatever. I mean, yes. But you've got whatever, exactly. Sorry. But we'll say like a lot of other comics, you're getting like 30 pages maybe to tell a full story, and even then you got to kind of go that. has to be, is that a thing with English comics? You said you read a lot of English comics. And I've read a lot of English comics. And a lot of them, like the Beano, the Dandy stuff, it's like, here's a page, here's 2 pages. We got a full thing, but it's jokes. But then there's like a lot of other books too, like The Eagle and stuff like that, where it's like, here's a quick story, but you're gonna be, it's like, oh, that was good. I enjoyed that. I didn't feel like it was rushed. I felt like that was a full story, and I felt like it was a full chapter, and I didn't feel like it's, oh, well, this is just a bit of padding to the next issue, or it's like, or rushing along or something like that. Like, it's just, yeah, how is that to, you have to hone in your skills to get to there? Because a lot of people can't write like that. Like, that's a skills.
Well,
like,
I had a problem going the other direction when I was writing for an American publisher, a writer called Jennifer Blood. And Jennifer Blood was 20, I think it was 20 pages per issue. And I was used to writing 10 or 6 page strips for Judge Dredd. So for my first few issues of Jennifer Blood were just crammed with stuff. And I realized, oh, hang on a minute, I've got to stretch the story out a bit more because it's a different thing. But yeah, no, it is hard. When I'm writing, if I'm writing something like, a book like the Judge's book or one of these things, I come up with an overall story and I break it down into chapters. And I come along and go, oh, this happens. Oh, that's an exciting bit. Chapter break there. With the comics, the chapters are all a set length, if you like, 6 pages per episode. You can't suddenly say to the editor, I'm feeling a bit lethargic today. I think we'll have 8 pages in this thing. And you go, no, because you've only got 6 pages allocated per issue. Now and again, you can push it and get an extra page, but you have to really, really, really want it. But so what happens is we cannot change the pace in that regard, but we can change the panels per page. But the thing about that is, and this is what people don't realize, I'll pick a comic at random and see. Right, here's one. Is it Miracle Man, book 3, or book 3? So what happens is there's 2 pages, okay? So if you have a twist in your story,
I'm so glad it wasn't the most gory, bloodiest page you could have found in Miracle Man. Oh, I was worried there for a second. I was like, oh, jeez. No, it's fine.
So,
it's fine.
If we have a, it's okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We pick a.
No. That's fine.
So so what happens is the reader comes along. Read. They get an opening page there. Read. Now, if you have a plot twist, you want the plot twist to be on this page at the top. Because you don't want it to be down here, because when the reader is reading this page, they'll inadvertently stray and their eyes will wander over and they'll see, oh no, my God, he's really a werewolf or whatever,
Wow.
So
I never thought about it. I've been reading for years. I'm just like, they've been tricking me.
Yeah. So when you write the script, you got to say to yourself, well, hang on, which way? So first page, you got to have something, especially if it's Dredd, the first page is always a right-hand page. So you go, okay, we can lead the readers in with this. They turn the page and there's something to keep them going, There's something intriguing at the bottom of page 3, then to make them want to turn over to page 4. Page 4 will be like a shock moment or whatever. And page 5 will be something to keep them going to page 5. Turn it over again. Page 6 is the last page, and that has to end with something that makes them want to go, oh, can't wait for next week.
Yeah.
You've got to do that every issue you think of. Now, when I wrote, it's a Dredd graphic novel I wrote called Every Empire Falls, and most of the stories were 6-page episodes, 6-page chunks. And it was 160 pages in total, something like that. Over some from the magazine, some from the product. Every story has to have these little cliffhangers all the way through. Don't have that. What happens is someone online will go, well, there wasn't much happened in this episode. And you go, right, well, yeah, that's because it's designed to be read as a whole. But it's also designed to be read in chunks. And then one of the lessons that we learned from Stan Lee was every issue of a comic is someone's first comic.
Yeah.
Someone's going to come along, pick it out of the blue. So they've got to be able to pick up the story and go, well, we're in the middle, we're in part 10 of 20.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, I don't know who these people are, I don't know, no idea what's happening. You've got to be enough in there to make them go, oh, okay, I want to find out more.
Yes.
You've got to do that well. So you don't get that with books, at least with a printed novel, where someone comes in completely at random out of the blue into the middle of it and starts reading. I mean, they can do that, but the rest of the book is actually there, so they're
Be a bit
probably better
odd.
off to start. Yeah. So every issue and every episode, we kind of have this in the back of our minds that there has to be enough to explain to new readers what's going on, or to someone who missed
Yeah.
an episode, which can happen sometimes.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can't keep repeating yourself. You don't want the reader who's familiar with all the
That's what I
story
was gonna
going, yeah,
say. Because
Proteus Vex.
like whenever I'm reading it, I'm never feeling like I can open a comic and I go, yeah, I can get a gist of it. But I'm not getting bogged down with exposition, because if I'm reading parts 1 to 7 or whatever it is, or even longer, I don't
You
want the
just
middle
said
of it to go.
you just said the hated word there, Michael. You said exposition. There's someone on the 2000 forums. Now, I don't read the reviews, but someone keeps telling me, someone who hates Proteus Vex because of the exposition, but they haven't grasped that the whole point of Proteus Vex is the exposition. And
Yeah.
exposition is when a character appears out of nowhere to explain what's going on because the plot is confusing. Usually. But Proteus Vex is designed. I'm having a bit of fun with it because it's designed as if someone in the far, 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 far future, way ahead of Vex, way beyond Vex's time, is telling you the legend.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
imagine if you're reading a book about Cleopatra, you know. So we don't know exactly what happened, but we know what
because I
people
was going to say, because half the time the exposition is like, well, it's believed that he did this. Like, well, we can see him doing this. What are you talking about? He didn't die there. Whatever.
But that's the key thing, is that it's like the unseen narrator in the far future is kind of doing the best bits, the bits that they make most sense to them. But by me throwing in bits saying like, that some people believe that this happened, but we know it couldn't have happened, because that's kind of adding this sort of historical flavor to the universe. The next book, I nearly gave away the title. I won't take the title. The next book,
Scoop, I nearly got him, man.
Yeah,
I would have cut it out.
On that idea a little bit, in that, if you were telling the story of, say, Robin Hood or Cleopatra from today's point of view, what you're doing is you're going to get some stories that conflict with each other, and you can't get them to line up, because you go, well, hang on, if this person was there then, and this person was in the other place at the same person in a different place at the same time, they can't both be true. So we got to figure out which one is more likely.
It was twins all along. It was twins. That's what you got to say. It was his twin.
It was
close. I know an alien did it.
Yeah. So we have that's one of the fun things of Vex, is that we're allowed. Because I'm making the rules up. I'm allowing myself to do that. But there's definitely one reviewer who hates it because they can't follow it, and I think some people are trying to take it all a little bit too seriously. And they should look at it as if it's someone telling the story of King Arthur or Robin Hood or whatever.
Some people that read 2000 AD, or they don't really read it at all. It's like some people that review, I should say. It's like, have you ever looked at it before? Because I saw one where they said, like, gosh, this is a real review. No, I read this the other day, where someone was reviewing a Judge Dredd story, and it was about how there was a statue going up to the judges, and people were protesting it, and Judge Dredd came along and smacked the protest down, and the reviewer said, oh gosh, I don't know about this now, because the protesters were right. And it's like, because why would you? Have you never read Judge Dredd before? That's often the thing. There was one story I read once where they went through someone's house. It was the wrong house, but still they arrested him because they pulled off the do not remove tag off the mattress. It's like, what? I can't remember who wrote that, but that was very funny. I remember it was stuck in my head for years. But that's what I mean. Like, he's not a nice man, lads. I don't know where I don't know. I was like, he's not like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, funny. I got that recently with Dreadnoughts. Hang on, I'll show off. I get the book down. Where did I put it? There we go. Excuse me for turning my back to you. Yes, so Dreadnoughts by me, John Higgins, and Sally Jane Hurst. Upside down.
Yeah.
Dreadnought. So this is one of the books that's the early days of Judge Dredd, and the main character is a judge who is brand new on the force, and it's set in the year 2035 in Boulder, Colorado, and there's a riot going on. And this judge turns up. She's only the fifth judge to arrive. So there's still police officers and there's judges. The judges have got more power. And she arrives out of the blue, sees a riot going on, and pulls out her gun and starts gunning them down because no one had told her, no, hang on, we want this to end peacefully. So that's how it begins, and it's brutal. It's horrible. It's terrible. The whole point is that it's brutal. It's horrible. It's terrible. One reviewer, my friend, they'll send me this link to the review saying, you're going to love this. This guy hates this character. The reviewer wanted to see Glover dead by the end of it because she was so clearly a horrible character. But that's the point. Yeah, she doesn't know she's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Same with Judge Dredd sometimes.
Exactly.
And there's politics and law are not black and white. They're very grey areas. There's different shades of grey, of course. But with the judges, and this is kind of the key thing, is that they are stamping down on crime, which is good, but they cause as much or more damage as criminals do.
But then it's like, well, what the crimes are usually like, sometimes it's like, well, that's not wrong, you know?
Yeah,
so it's just,
that's it exactly. I mean, that's there's a if you can imagine that justice and the law are things that they overlap, but they're not identical. So it's a Venn diagram. There are things that are just, they're justifiable. They're morally acceptable, but they're still illegal. Like a poor person stealing bread. I mean, who's going to arrest a poor guy because he's got no food, no money. He steals bread. It's technically a crime. However, it's not immoral, as far as I'm concerned, unless he's stealing bread from someone else who's also poor. But so there's a kind of a seam, an area where something is morally just, but it's illegal, and there are things that are legal but they're immoral, and those little sort of grey or little fuzzy areas are where you get the best stories. That's like the seam where you mine the good stuff from. And we have with Dredd, we've had many cases where he has gone, now hang on a minute, legally this is right, but morally it's wrong, and he can change the law, and that's the key thing. Dredd the judges can rewrite the law as necessary.
It's those moments where you go, there's a tiny twinge of humanity when it comes through in Dredd. You go, he is nice. But then other times he'll shoot someone in the face for something. And he's like, where am I going with this guy? Where are you coming from?
With Judge Dredd, I think he is very tough. He is always going to be fair. But he's going to be fair. He will, as I write him, he is he's more about justice than he is about the law. So he'll tweak the law to be just. Some of the writers will write him differently, and that's where we get the great fun from. John Wagner, who co-created Dredd back all those years ago with Carlos Esquerra, John is the ultimate. Nobody understands Dredd as well as John does. And then there's me, and then everybody else is way behind. No, that's not true. No, there's people like Rob Williams and Gareth Ennis and Gordon Rennie, and all they're doing amazing work, and Alan Grant in particular. But everybody has a slightly different approach, but we all ultimately know that the key thing is that Dredd doesn't know he's the bad guy.
No,
but he doesn't have a hero complex. He's just trying to do the best he can.
He's just a guy. That's the thing. He's a guy. He's just a guy.
He has no ego as well.
No, it's not
the best
like
example of Dredd is the one of the best examples is the 2012 Judge Dredd movie, or Dredd movie starring Carl Urban. He got that absolutely spot on. The cop.
What I was gonna say, I think it's interesting. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up here, but what I think is, because you're saying you have to go right. We've been talking for an hour, but what I thought was an interesting contrast is when Judge Dredd met Batman, and whereas if Batman was a judge, we're screwed. I mean, I don't know. Batman he might change, but he's moralistic. He's like, I am the knight. I am vengeance. Like, what are you talking about? You're just some rich guy. What are you talking about? Whereas Judge Dredd is like, listen, lads, I was just, They told me to put the helmet on me. Said, "This is what your life is. There you go. I can't really. The system
Yeah,
is what it is. I can't change the whole thing. I'm just one guy."
you can change things. But the thing with Batman would do more good with his money than he will with his fists.
Oh,
But he
we've heard that
chooses
loads of things. Yeah,
to use his fists. No,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
true. I mean, he's a
Oh, yeah.
billionaire.
Oh, totally.
Um,
Yeah, totally.
I mean, poverty exists because billionaires exist.
Yep.
That's why there are poor people. So if Batman chose to actually be a good guy and not an avenger of the night,
Yeah,
he could do a huge amount of good.
yeah.
I mean, I love Batman, I have to say,
Oh,
but
same
it
here. I love
didn't
him.
stand up to any scrutiny. But
Mm.
then most characters of any genre, of any medium, don't stand up to any scrutiny. You've got to go, Indiana Jones, really? Archaeologist, really? No.
No, not at
Um,
all. No,
Yeah,
kind of.
no, I don't want to put indie. I love indie, but
Oh, yeah,
when Dredd met Batman, it was done deliberately over the top. But of course, it was
yeah,
written by John Magner and Alan Grant,
yeah.
who were both Batman writers and Dredd writers at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
they were doing.
Match made in heaven. Yeah.
But yeah, Batman comes across better than Dredd in that
Oh,
story, I
yeah.
think. But,
Mm-hmm. But, right. Well, I suppose that's where we're going to leave it because, as I say, I've been keeping you up for more than an hour now,
I
and
know it's not
so
fair though. We've loads of time.
I don't. Well, I would keep talking for ages, but I have to edit it all down. But all right, you know what? I could just put it up as a podcast and just like edit it some other way. But well, I suppose actually what I was going to say was one of the stories that I don't know why, but it really stuck with me when I was a teenager was Johnny Alpha and Strong Team Dogs. I don't know what it was, but that story really, really got to me and really stuck to me. It's just a brilliant story. I think the artwork as well, and how the kind of is pushed against people's societies, like we hate you, we don't like you, and then they send them out to be bounty hunters and stuff like that. And it could have been just such a very like ho hum, and ABC Warriors as well, actually, the one that I like as well. But those two, when I was a teenager, is what got me into 2000 AD and Judge Dredd, of course, as well. Then after that, well, I mean, that's everyone's intro. That's not just beside the point. But those got me. I don't know. It's just brilliant stuff. I think it's wonderful, brilliant stuff. And I mean, you go through the whole list of stories that have been in there over the years. People you've got like Zombo meeting Judge Dredd, I think last year actually, and who's a former male stripper who's very polite, but a zombie and wants to eat people. But and then you've got how do you pronounce it? Proteus Vex?
Proteus Vex.
Proteus, of course.
Yeah.
I need it.
The name does mean something. Yeah.
Oh, it does.
It doesn't just sound like a cool name. It means something. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right. Well, it's just a wonderful world of characters, wonderful world of the writers, art. I mean, the amount of art has gone through it. Who've like just there's a whole show there of the artists and what they've gone on to, and the various lads. One of them started a band. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And the writers and their television, everything kind of stuff. But here's what I want to ask you: which of the characters would you like to see as a film? If you're like, okay, I've got if you win the Lost of Tomorrow, you get billions, you can make one into a film. What one are you going to put into production?
Well, obviously, I'd put Proteus Vex because I created that. But
go.
no, aside from Proteus Vex, aside from my stuff, I would like to see Strong Team Dog.
I was going to say as well. Yeah, I think it would make the great film.
The basic idea is that after many nuclear wars, there's a lot of radiation, a lot of people born with horrible mutations. They're being shunned from society, and the only job that most of them get is to be a bounty hunter out in space.
Yeah.
And that's Johnny Alpha, who's the lead character, his Strong Team Dog, and it's created by the same guys who created Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely brilliant stuff. Yeah. It could work as a really good movie. There was actually they did a few guys did a short movie a couple of years ago. It's on YouTube. Strong Team Dog, Search and Destroy, I think it's called. They previously made a Dredd one and
the Judgmenty one, is this?
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that. That's very, very good. Yeah.
That was really good fun. They did loads of work and I got loads of credit. So Stephen Green and Stephen Sterlicini did that. They brilliant guys. But they did a Strong Team Dog, kind of a short film as a tester. Now it's not perfect by any means, but it gets the atmosphere right. It feels right. It looks amazing. they did a really good job, and they just that's as just an example of how what can be done. It's remarkable. So something that would work really well. But if you wanted to look at the cheaper end of things, because you wouldn't have to create huge spaceships and all that sort of sets and something more down to earth. I suppose you could go to something like Mach 1, which I loved as a kid, but it probably wouldn't work so well now.
I know the name. I don't know if I've Mach 1.
Mach 1 was the 2000s take on the $6 Million Man.
Oh!
The Secret Age is enhanced. Yeah.
Feels so silly. Yeah. Yes.
It's not good fun. And that was a bit more down to earth. What else could you do? I don't know. Rogue Trooper could work well as a movie, and I know that Duncan Jones, who made Moon, and a few other, is developing that at the moment. I've written stories in that universe too. That was good fun.
Yes, I like Rogue Trooper though.
I'd like to see, actually, speaking of that, I'd like to see a movie version of Jaeger, which is written by Gordon Rennie and drawn by Simon Colby, which is set in the Rogue Trooper universe, but it's kind of set there, but it's separate.
Yeah, it's the other point of view, isn't it? From the other army, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly. So you have a viewpoint of the ones we've always been told were the baddies.
Yeah.
It's
interesting.
And it's really well done.
Yeah.
Like Kingdom by Dan Abnett and Richard Elson. That is beautiful work. I'd love to see that done.
But you know what I like? Sorry. What I was going to say, do you know what I like though, is while fans, of course, and I can't use one of those, we're all like, as creators, well, of course, but we're all like, oh, it'd be nice to have a film. But at the same time, we're like, we don't need it to be, because the comics are just like, the comics is the thing. And it's so different to like a lot of other fandoms are like, oh, it should be well, not really fandoms of the comics, I suppose. They're more fans of the films, and that's grand too.
Yeah.
But it's some great films we'll like, by the way. But I think though that a lot of us are like, oh yeah, that was nice, but the comics good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the one thing that's important to remember, and most people don't kind of grasp this, and I didn't do until my friend Michael Scott, the guy who introduced me to being a writer, he said to me about something, is that if there's a movie version made of something, like if your book gets turned into a movie, which hasn't happened to me yet, but it nearly did, but more people will see that than will ever read the book. Ever read the book. For example, if you look at the Artemis Fowl movie, the based on Uncover stuff, I haven't seen the film yet. I know it didn't get great reviews. I know a lot of the fans of the books were some of the fans were disappointed because they, they're always going to be disappointed. You could never film this exactly, but more people will have seen that movie than ever read the books, even if the movie is a flop, and I don't think it was. But even if a movie is really bad and a flop, still more people will see it than will ever read the books.
Yeah.
And that's just one of those sad things, partly because reading a book is harder than watching the movie. But with Dredd, when the 2012 Judge Dredd movie came out, Judge Dredd, the character, had been around for 25 years or whatever it was at that stage. 35 years. And almost everybody went, oh, it's a remake of the Sylvester Stallone movie from 1995. And we're going, no, it's based on the same
arguments period. I got into online, and I went, let's walk away. Michael, walk away.
But the thing is that one of the reasons that the 2012 movie with Karl Urban, which is brilliant, one of the reasons it didn't do very well was because it was tainted by the stink, as it were, of the 95 movie with Stallone, which looks amazing, but isn't really Judge Dredd for most of the film.
No, not at all. No. So the first 10 minutes are good. Yeah, the first 10 minutes where he's into the block war.
He takes his helmet off, and you suddenly go, "Oh, it's a Sylvester Stallone movie." Yeah,
it's done.
When we saw that in the cinema, I was going, "This is actually pretty good." And then he takes his helmet off, and I went, "Oh!" And I hadn't realized until then that he hadn't taken his helmet off. To me, I was seeing Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
And then I was seeing Sylvester Stallone, and for the rest of the movie, it's a Sylvester Stallone movie.
Yeah.
And it's a pity. So there are some great bits in that film. The Mean Machine is incredibly well done.
Yeah,
the ABC robot is great.
Yeah.
It's got Ian Dury in it, and Ian Dury was a legend and one of my personal heroes, so that makes it also good. But yeah, so that's a good example of how it works, is that even though the 2012 Dredd movie is a masterpiece, and it really is a fantastic piece of filmmaking, it's short, it's concise, it's tough, it's exactly what it needs to be.
Yep.
still most people I see every day on Twitter. I see someone going, "Oh my god, I've just seen this movie. It's amazing," and we're going, "Yeah, we know. We've been saying this for years."
But here's the thing. When that film came out, and I'm still salty about this, it was out for like a week, it seemed like, in
Yeah,
my local
it's
cinema.
lucky.
And they took rid of. I was like, I went up to the car. I was like, "Where is it? Where is this film? This is the biggest film around." He's like, "No, it's not." I was like, "Oh no, it was here for a week, and then we took it away." I was like, I was like, "I know it's not your decision," but I was still annoyed about it. Oh,
Oh yeah,
lads.
yeah. It is a really, really good movie. Now it's not a tame movie. It's not for kids,
No,
but it really works, and it's
great,
a great example of a really good, strong female villain character.
brilliant.
There's there's a couple of flaws in the character I woun't have done, but nevertheless, they did a brilliant job. And then, of course,
Mm,
having Judge Anderson as the Dread sidekick, another
yep,
strong female character.
yep.
You don't get a lot of that in science fiction,
Hmm.
to be honest. You
Nope.
don't get most of the female characters are there to be rescued.
Yep,
They're there to be explained things to.
yep.
Um, and that's one of the reasons I think the film works so well is that Judge Anderson, okay, at the beginning she's a rookie, so she does need a lot of help. By
Yeah.
the end of the film, she absolutely cares,
No, that's
Oh,
just
yeah,
Judge Anderson. I
yeah,
mean, like she's just Judge Anderson. If you don't know, folks, is just a. If you don't know, but if you listen to this already, you probably know. But no, this is an introduction for a lot of people. What am I saying? Anyway, cut all that out, Michael, in the edit. Okay, perfect. Okay. But Judge Anderson is such a brilliantly written character as well, and actually, this is the thing I want to say. This is what I wanted to say. Judge Dredd ages.
yes, he does.
This
Yeah,
is the thing that has
yeah.
always fascinated me.
I think the Savage
Time
Dragon
and
is the only
gone.
other character who's that. I haven't read out in years. Yeah, so
Yeah.
so that's basically As a year passes for us, a year passes for Judge
Yes.
Dredd. So the
Yes.
first Dredd stories were set in the year 2099, and
And
the
it's
current
now
Dredd stories are set in the year 2044. So
45 years later.
45 years later. So
Yeah.
Dredd was already a 20-year veteran on the
Yep.
streets in
Yep.
2099. So now he's been on the streets as a judge for 65 years.
What I love is you look at his face, what you can see of it, his mouth, and
Yeah.
it's you see, you know, it's a young, fresh face. Even his body's a bit slimmer and stuff like that. And then it's like face. I'm showing a face for radio,
Yeah.
but and he's aged and he's changed. His personality's kind of changed well too. Judge Anderson is the same. She's aged. She's changed.
Yeah.
And I've never seen, and there's, by the way, that's the thing with folks. There's not a lot of like, you don't have to go back and read it from the start or anything. That's the brilliant thing about 2080, as Mike was saying there, that it's not, if everyone's comic is everyone's first and they know that, and it's, you know, it's not, you don't feel like, oh, who's this character? Who's that character? You'll pick it up straight away. But with, there's no restart. There's never been a Crisis on Infinite Dreads, you know. There was. Last Christmas, kind of.
Uh-huh.
They made up, yeah. But but there's no reboot. So it's 21,000 something progs and stuff like that. Like, by the way, I started this. I said Splundig Vertig, Zarjaz, progs. These are all terms from 2008 that are in the editorial box, and he's lying and saying it's mess. It's not really. It's obviously Tharg the Mighty, who was an alien from Beetlejuice, who invented the Mohawk, I believe. I think anyway. He popularized it, I think.
Well, I think that the Mohicans might have popularized the Mohawk, but there you go.
Well, he was around longer than them. They got it from him.
Yeah, we don't know, but so Dredd ages in real time, and that means that there are repercussions. Pretty much every Judge Dredd story that has been published is considered to be part of the canon. That's a canon. That is the there's no imaginary tales or no whitewashing stuff. With something like Spider-Man, I mean, you think Spider-Man is still in his 30s and he came out in the 60s, the early 60s.
Yeah. Well, it's like, there's the time works weirdly in Marvel, I think. It's like, when did Galactus invade? A couple of years ago. It's like that.
Yeah, exactly. Weird, someone said that the way it works is that it's like 10 years in Marvel is a year in real time or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. I think because it comes out every month or something as well. It kind of affects it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's the same with Superman. I mean, Superman, the first stories appeared in 1938. So the first stories were set in then present day. So that means that Superman...
Mike, we're going to get so many nerds giving out to me for this.
4 years.
You're gonna come along. They're gonna say no because that's not the same Superman because that Superman died and this is the new Superman because it rebooted the universe and that happened.
That's kind of the whole point, isn't it? That
is
with
it.
Dredd, we haven't done that.
No.
There have been different versions of Judge Dredd. There was a comic called Legends of the Law, which was published by DC, and that was slightly different version of Judge Dredd. And there was the Lawman of the Future, which was a kid's version of the comic that came out in '95, based on the Dredd that was in the Stone movie. So there's been a few tweaks, but the main Judge Dredd stuff has not been altered. There's no one gone back and reset the timelines yet, or anything like that. And they won't do it. I think there's no reason for it. If Judge Dredd himself gets to be too old, then I think every one of us writers has got a get out of jail free card just in case, that we can go, well, this is our solution. I planted a few seeds back, 10 years ago.
Don't spoil into now, because I'm going to be reading them.
We won't say what they are, but if I need, I can say I can pull on those threads and go, this is how you do that. But also, I rejuvenated Dredd after what happened to him in the Every Empire Falls storyline when he gets very, very badly beaten. I got him a skin rejuve. So that's happened to him a few times. Happened to him after a couple of storyline as well.
I was going to say there. I was going to say actually about Judge Dredd. We're going way over time now, so sorry about this. But these are all questions I wanted to ask for years. But so at the end of the day with Dredd, is it John Wagner who would decide if he's like, oh, he's dead now, that's it, he's done, or is it more because it's 2008 and it's collaborative? Would he not? He wouldn't want to do that. I mean,
well, on a pretty practical level, you don't kill the golden goose.
Yeah,
Dredd is the mainstay character, the flagship character for the entire 2000 AD line, as it were.
I phrased that badly. What I meant to say was any kind of changes, would it go through John Wagner or is it going through the thing?
There's a few people have asked me about this, and they said, is it like there's like a showrunner involved in the whole thing who's in charge and is there kind of like a series Bible, which is where they do that for TV, where they produce documents saying this is where we're going, this is what we can do, can't do, and so on. And the fact is, there is a series Bible, and it's called 2,170 odd issues of 2000 AD, and 400 and something odd issues of the Judge Dredd magazine and all the annual specials.
Yeah,
that's the series Bible. As for what happens in the future, there's a whole bunch of writers like me and Rob Williams and so on, who've got our own set of storylines, our own little characters. John Magnus is the same. I'm sure Rory McConnell's doing the same. That we're kind of planting our own seeds. And so all of our stories kind of work intermingling. And now and again, one of us will contact the other one and say, I'm doing this. Does that interfere? It all goes through Matt Smith. I mean, Tharg, the editor. So, the mighty Tharg. And what he will do is he will say to me, oh, you can't go there because this is going to happen. Or you can't do that.
That's kind of what I figured. I said it in a weird way, but that's why I kind of figured it'd be more collaborative like that.
So instead of having the way to look at it is, instead of having a shepherd guiding all the sheep are in control. But every now and again, we look to each other and go, are we okay to go over there? And if some of them are going to go, oh, well, no, hang on, if we go over there, that messes up my plans. Then we go, okay, and we rework it. So it's kind of a controlled chaos going on. Or I'm lying. And we know exactly what we're doing. Could be either. I mean, lying is just fiction, and I'm a fiction teller, so, who knows?
Just like you lied about Tharg the Mighty not being the editor of 2080, which is very strange because it says that right in the start of the book.
He's there every issue nearly, except for that time when he was there.
Some people say it's just a monkey mask painted green, but I don't see it.
No, well, there you go. I'm saying nothing. I've met several versions of Tharg at this stage, actually.
And you always brought a polystyrene cup to give him because you're just polite. And he eats them.
I think actually, if you are going to meet him and give him a polystyrene cup, because he needs polystyrene cups, it's very important to make sure you put some coins in it to weight it down so it doesn't blow away in the wind. Lots and lots of pound coins or euros would be the way to do it there. Fill it. And
Of course.
that's the way to do it. Yeah. Or you take a check,
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, it's a lot of fun writing for the comic, but it's still work. It's still a job, and I think it's probably just as hard as any other job, like digging ditches or digging nuclear power stations or digging windmills or digging mines or something. I'm sure it's hard as a real job.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you gotta. I mean, as we were saying, I don't know how Matt Smith does it. And he's been doing it since like 2000 or something like that. Like 30 pages, so many different stories each week, and it's nonstop. Huh?
Hang on, let's do a calculation. Where's the calculator? Right. So let's say it's 32 pages, but there's 2 ads in each issue. So we'll say you give them 27, multiplied by 50 issues a year, because they take a couple weeks off for Christmas, multiplied by 23 years, let's say, that's 2,700 pages. That's just from 2000 AD. Plus there's all the specials and the annuals and the Judge Dredd magazine and all that. So we're probably looking at 40,000 odd pages.
No,
he's editing. Plus he writes.
Oh, that's right. I forget that.
If we look at Judge Dredd Year 3, which is a collection of short novels, and the writers on that are, you see that? Mike Carroll, Matt Smith, and Laurel Sills. There you go. So, you as well. So, yeah. And he's a good writer.
Yeah.
You want the people when they write stuff like that you're working on, you want them to be a bit rubbish. You can go, it's all right. Or you read the stuff and you go, damn, wish I thought
that. Yeah. So it sounds like it's tough work, but it's a friendly atmosphere in 2018. Like everyone works together, everyone gets along. Yeah.
It's I mean, it's not like a job. We're a company where we all get together. Especially now, conventions are not happening. But I mean, some of the guys that I work with I would consider to be very good friends. The PR guy for 2008, Mike Mulcher.
Yes, who I want to say thank you to actually for setting this all up.
Who, by the way, is writing a treatise on Dredd.
Looking forward to that.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. He's very, very smart. And he's actually probably, you won't hear this, but he's probably one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he's a good writer. But yeah, so I would consider him to be a really good friend. Yeah. But at the same time, our relationship is primarily a work relationship, and that I will say to him, what's happening with this, what's happening with that, and he will ask me, can you do this, can you do that, and so on. But for the most part, I mean, I'm great friends with people like PJ Holden, who's based up in Belfast, and he's one of the artists, and he and I have worked on Dredd many times. It's been a while, actually. I must get back to working with him again. But he is just brilliant. He's really funny. And I get on great with most of them. There's only 1 or 2 that I don't like, but they don't know. So, and I'm sure it goes the same way.
Anyway, Mike, we're going way over time, like a half an hour and plus overtime now. I said only an hour.
The will be full by this stage. Yes.
No, I don't want to keep your time. I don't want to keep you because I know you're very busy. And as I said before we started recording, Mike's work is, if I was to go through your bibliography, it'd be an hour. You've written novels, short stories, comics, short films. You did, by the way, fans of 2008 from a couple of years back. If you remember a website where they had Badger, where you could make your own little badge, your Judge Dredd badge with your name on it. Mike did that.
I wrote that. Yeah, well, I used to be a programmer. And unfortunately, it no longer works because Flash doesn't work anymore. I must rewrite it one day in something else, but it's been so long since I was a programmer. I've lost it. But yeah, I wrote that. I've written lots of these things. And yeah. I've got one on my website at the moment called Madcap for comics collectors, which is a thing where you can figure out if you have a comic book, you don't know what date it started on, you can use all that stuff. It's
cool. Go check that out, so folks. That's MikeOwenCarroll.com. MichaelOwenCarroll.com.
Yeah.
So yeah, now the only thing I want to say before I leave you off is if you're writing near the Judge Dredd story, please set it back in Ireland again. I would like to see it back in Ireland to see what the
No, we're never doing that. No, we're going to destroy the Emerald Isle. It's going to be.
But at least it's mentioned.
It's going to be overrun by all those snakes that St. Patrick sent away. They're back and they're pissed. They're back and they're hissed. So.
Okay, yeah, that's it. I'll read that. Yeah, sure, that's good. Okay.
Actually, now that I've said that, maybe I will do that.
Yeah, but they're giant snakes, maybe, and maybe the guy talks.
St.
And there's
Patrick
a political thing too. Whatever political
But
party you don't like, folks, that's the one I mean. Anyway.
That's right. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you very much. I
Yep.
wish you lots of luck with this blog thing. I hope I made some kind of sense. If I didn't, it's entirely your fault.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Bizarre questions. Michael, thank you so much for taking time of your day. Thank you to Mulcher who set all this up. I believe his first name is Michael, but I only know him as Molak or possibly the best mustache in comics. Maybe outside Nicholas Gazin. I wonder would they ever have a voice. But there we go. Thank you again so much. And here's to 45 more years and plus of 2080.